Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining our Mass Timber March Madness. Excited to have Salla kick this off. I've known Salla for, I don't know, at least 5-6 years since she stormed into the US and took high-level positions at multiple construction companies, then jumped into the high-tech world. Now she's worldwide lead for construction for Microsoft. So a great ally as the technology and construction industry kind of merge, and she gives her international perspective because, like my wife, she's from Finland. So welcome, Salla. And before we kick off, I do want to thank the U.S. Forest Service for their support, as well as the Tallwood Design Institute. Take it away, Salla.
Thank you, Craig, and thank you for our audience this morning. It's an honor for me to continue to be invited to be a speaker at the Mass Timber City events and AEC Hackathon. Like Craig mentioned, we've known each other for 6 years already, and a little bit probably even beyond that. 6 years is about the milestone that I've lived and worked in the United States, and it's been a very great journey. And a lot of the thanks actually go to Craig. I don't want to miss the opportunity to thank Craig, as he's the one who realized that he's told me that Finns could rule the world if you only spoke. So I took that advice and started kind of practicing public speaking and dealing with the public speaking anxiety that I had and still do. So pardon me if I struggle with my words or stumble a little bit. It's not that I've practiced enough, but it's just the anxiety of public speaking. But yeah, here we are today, and it is my pleasure to talk something about the work that I'm driving forward globally for not only Microsoft Real Estate and Security organization where I work, but also for our worldwide construction community and our customers. So we are a global real estate owner organization, as we are also a technology organization. And coming from the Center of Innovation, I have somewhat more flexibility in looking into emerging technologies and doing very cool stuff without risking our daily operations. And before we kind of head forward, I want to mention the background image here that really much summarizes what's the direction of the built environment industry. Pre-COVID, we were talking a lot about digital transformation. It still is a valid keyword, but based on what's happened in a year, I've started to realize that we probably have to start talking more about digital disruption and what it means for our industry. Here you can see the HoloLens technology and the projection of a hologram on a table. I personally think that the inclusivity and everything that we can do with remote teams using technology is going to bring us back stronger than ever when we are ready to return back to offices and return back to collaborating as teams. But by the time that we are ready to do that, I'm thinking that we are all digitally transformed already, and we are ready to positively disrupt our built environment industry. And on that note, this is the big question that I ask myself every day that I sit in front of my work computer, that how might we, that means you and me, all of us, disrupt the outcomes of the built environment industry to do better this time. So it's I deliberately wanted to change the sentence structure from very futuristic, that is very abstract for people and kind of tucked away. No worries about the future, it's 10 years or 20 years away, but it's not. It really is the choices that we do today, and how do we actually work more together to create different outcomes. So if we are always using the traditional methods and tools and processes, the outcomes will never change. The outputs might change or look a little different, as we all know that when we went through the last big digital transformation in the 1980s, and AutoCAD came and replaced paper drawings and drawing by hand to drawing and drafting with computer. we're pretty much still in that phase as an industry, but there are pockets of innovators that are more advanced than anyone understands. But what the opportunity here is that, considering what is happening with the natural environment and the built environment, we can do better. We can continue improving our built environment and make it healthier and more accessible, more secure, more sustainable for everyone. But what I'm really asking for is that we all start from ourselves and we look into the mirror, that where is the solution? It oftentimes is found in the mirror. And instead of delegating the responsibility and accountability for someone else, and when discussing with the industry stakeholders and partners, there's oftentimes finger pointing at, oh, it's the architects, it's the engineers, it's the general contractors, it's the owner, it's someone else. It's always from another organization than where we actually work ourselves. And it's oftentimes very abstract. So what I'm looking for is that how might we make ourselves more accountable and responsible for the outcomes that we want to see tomorrow in our built environment industry. So how does it all tie together into mass timber and the owners and the investors that are funding the projects that we are working in? Nobody will start a project just because they want to. You always have a real estate owner involved that is the origin of the beginning of the process. Some of you might have already seen this graph, but this is to simplify how we can collaborate with the real estate owners better than before. Traditionally speaking, the AEC industry has kept the O at arm's length, not really thinking that we are part of the same industry. It's the construction industry, and then there's the real estate industry. And that's how things have been in the past. But now, when we are thinking about the tools and the processes that we have, technology becomes the integrator, and we can start really collaborating together as a team, and not forgetting the individual input and the individual contribution. But overall, the future is more about doing together. But how do we get there? When we are dealing with the real estate investors and developers and the owners, they are oftentimes coming from the financial institutions, and they think like bankers. They don't necessarily understand the design process and the construction process, but they understand money. And when you are collaborating with them and explain to them how mass timber and how the emerging technologies that you're developing are actually creating then the better return of investment or better financial outcomes, you could explain to them that the way that you're designing or delivering or managing their portfolio, when they are looking at their annual spend, they can expect a better product or a better service because they are going through the digital transformation and digitizing more than they've ever done before. And that's when thinking about the better product, it is the built environment, the physical artifacts that we deal with, the buildings, the assets, the infrastructure, and the services are the end user experiences that we want to create for those that come to our buildings or our workspaces. I see that there is a Q&A question. Who wants to ask a question at this point?
I'm posting some. We don't have too many new yet. But I opened it up to everyone so we can make it like an ongoing conversation as well as your presentation.
Okay, good. And if we are looking at the real estate owners and kind of slicing their annual spend, if they are overspending by their own metrics, they should be looking at that as an opportunity for profitable growth. That how might they actually invest the excess funds into improving the built environment, developing greenfield projects, brownfield projects, grayfield, blackfield, anything that is putting the funds and the money back into the environment. And when we are looking at the environment that we are dealing with, what we are improving, oftentimes you're seeing and hearing the buzzword of smart environments, smart buildings, smart campuses, smart cities, and smart nations. And with that, we are no longer limited to only developing the physical environment, but what we are actually developing is the trifecta of physical, digital, and social environments. The social environment being all the end users, people that are using the commercial real estate and the corporate real estate, residential real estate, the first, second, and third places of work. And it's the digital environments like the Zoom or Teams and all the common data environments and digital platforms, digital twins that are the glue between all the different end users. And that way we can be more inclusive and hear what the other people have to say about the development so that we are not pigeonholing ourselves just based on our own needs or experiences. And when we have those three environments in our hands, and we are looking to really start developing them, with the real estate owners, we have to understand that they come from the investment strategy side, whereas we might come from the design and construction strategy side. So when they are thinking about the investment strategy, oftentimes the capital expense and operational expense are split. When thinking about the design process, now that we have the capabilities of using building information models, we can support the capital expense planning, but we can also start supporting the operational expense planning and bridge them together already in the early phases of design, when we only know basically the spatial program, but we also understand what our ambition is in terms of sustainability or accessibility. And then we also have the target value delivery in mind or target value design number in mind. And that way, when we are engineering and designing the physical artifact digitally, we already have the quantity takeoffs available or bill of quantities, whatever the term is. And that way, instead of just cost estimating the projects, we start cost engineering. And the difference between cost estimating and cost engineering is that when thinking about the United States market, the cost estimating approximately is plus or minus 30% each project. That's a huge gap. But with the building information model-based design, we can start designing for construction or designing for manufacturing and fabrication. And that way, when we see that what are we actually dealing with, what are the amounts of assets that we are planning on building or manufacturing and fabricating into our built environment, we can cost engineer the project and start resolving the issues that might occur later on. And when we are ready to start procuring things, we can value engineer the different suppliers and not strip away what are the cool features that are seen as the excess budget, but really value engineer that which are the suppliers that actually deliver additional value, added value for the real estate owner. And that way you're already supporting their capital expense journey, which makes up for about 90% of the total cost of ownership. When we look into the design strategy, we can look at the building as a product. So you have the digital version of your building, the building information model, or later on the digital twin, and you can simulate how is that building actually going to perform technically? How much airflow is there going to be? How much energy is it going to be using? How much water is there going to be used? You can analyze the building as a service and look into the financial aspects of when you have the end users using the building. Where do you actually start generating profit for your portfolio, not only from the built environment side, but also from the social environment side. But then there are also the end user experiences that are oftentimes very difficult to know beforehand. But nowadays that you have your building information models, but you also have the extended reality software and hardware and the technology available, you can engage people into digital job walks or digital experiences of the building before it's actually built. And that way you can start resolving the end user problems or issues before they actually occur. And that way you don't end up developing something that needs to be going through a very heavy tenant improvement right from the first day. So combining these three, you get the total performance of your environments. So you get the technical performance, you get the social performance, and then you can start tying in the digital performance as well and lead your real estate owner towards the digital twin journey.
Salla, I had
Yeah.
a couple, these are so many topics and technologies moving so fast, but now that you're here in the Pacific Northwest, Microsoft is doing a massive rebuild of its campus. I think a significant amount of that is mass timber. Silicon Valley, Microsoft did a massive mass timber building, but all of these moving parts in the supply chain, how that's going to be integrated into this actual flow of information for designing and building. It's so many moving parts. I mean, how do you see that? You're that unique perspective because you're inside of Microsoft with all of those employees and all those buildings, and then you see the evolving supply chain in construction.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much we could do. How fast is it moving, or what are you thinking?
Well, I'm the generator now at the Microsoft Real Estate and Security. So I'm the one who is building up our BIM program and our digital construction program, and then the digital twins program from the real estate owner's perspective. And with that, we need to basically address it with as like a 4-tier cake. That the year that I joined Microsoft Real Estate and Security, I started developing the standards layer. What kind of global, international, national standards and our own design guidelines and project management handbooks and standards should we actually adapt into our BIM process? And that way we have a strong foundation that is shared with the industry. So there's no need for creating something new when you already have functional existing standards, and it's just a matter of referencing them in a way that it's simplifying the processes for the people that are working on the same project. So it's going to take time to really get people to really understand that why they should be caring for the others that are working on the same project rather than just repeating the same process that they've always been repeating. And with that, this year, I've been really focusing on developing a technology layer of the cake, which means that when looking into the built environment industry, there are hundreds and hundreds of different software that people are using every day to create data and to create the projects, to create the outcomes or the outputs from their workflow. But oftentimes the technology is not integrated together and people struggle with very manual processes, even though they have very high-tech solutions in their hands. So that's what needs to be resolved as well. And the third layer of the cake is the information layer. What information do we need to perform our job in the same project? And how do we communicate to the others that what they should be creating for us? And that way avoid the big flood of data or avoid having a lot of dark data available because there was like a big data dump that nobody really realized what they're going to be doing with it because there was no strategy for what information needs to be managed and how that information becomes knowledge. So it's a knowledge management dilemma. And when thinking about the traditional ways of working in the built environment industry, it's been very manual and a lot of the data has been documented in 2D drawings, but they don't really carry any of the information or the data that needs to be machine readable and also human readable for the future. And when we have those 3 tiers, then we can start looking into the end user experiences and the business cases and the use cases. And that way we already have the strong foundation to kind of spin it into any direction that is needed. And everything is based on global and international national standards. We have the technology integrations that enable people to flow the data that they need for the information management processes. And then when they start thinking about the end user experiences, their own use cases, their business cases, they don't have to worry so much about the data management and doing that manually, because it can all be more automated, and you can start integrating more of a machine learning and AI into the processes. But the journey is going to be pretty long, and it's probably going to be quite a rough ride, because what we need to do is disrupt the industry, but in a way that it's not too abrupt. So we are kind of more in the digital transformation side, so that the business can actually keep up with the pace and not go bankrupt or belly up because people don't have enough readiness for it and the training. So it's a, like you described, it's a multifaceted problem, but also an opportunity.
Okay, yeah, we've got a couple of questions coming in. For one from Roy Huang, has Microsoft made any advancement in integrating BIM and its HoloLens program as it relates to end user engagement or constructability? And I know I'm putting you on the spot because you have to kind of answer for all Microsoft technologies and the entire construction industry, but what do you think on that one?
Yeah, there are already advancements, and we have the Azure remote rendering that enables you to deal with massive 3D files. So the technology is there. The technology really is there. It's and the bits and pieces are existing. So now it's a people problem. So it's the technology has caught up to the end users that when we were dealing with the lack of processing power on computers when we began our BIM journey 20 years ago, that you couldn't really deal with the 3D models because your laptop or your desktop would actually crash, or you would require like hours of rendering until you could spit out anything. So those days are over, and now that we are having more of these wearable computers, solutions are coming, and they are pretty much cloud-based solutions, and that way you don't need localized processing power, but you process things in the cloud and just focus on consuming the visual data that you have in your hands and take it from there.
Great. Here's another question, if we could. Mark Devereaux, just wondering how Microsoft manages the usually very siloed practices of stakeholders, like architects, engineers, etc., with respect to sharing data. Do you encourage more collaborative risk-sharing processes, such as integrated project delivery?
Oh, very good question for Mark. And this is what I'm driving forward now. So it might be that our operational teams are not yet adapted to what I'm doing, but this is very much on my plate every day, that how do we provide common data environments so that the stakeholders that are working on our projects and delivering the data that we own, that they can use the platforms that we have approved, and that way the data that everyone needs to deliver the project, they have access to it, and they are sharing the same common data environment, and that everything is based on our BIM standard. So it's very well described and documented workflow already, and that way it's once we have everyone on the kind of the same page, on the same handbook, and there is clear definition of who is expected to deliver what, and overall we democratize the data that is delivered, so that there's no longer the tedious task of emailing people or calling people that can you please provide me this information that I need to do my job. The point is that we make data available for everyone who is working on the same project, and then you can just manage that. If there's anything that is not for the eyes of everyone, you grant access rights or you limit them. It's all manageable when you are storing the data into the cloud and using common data environments.
Oh, thanks. I know you've got so many activities going on. One of them is your role at the Digital Twin Consortium. Mm-hmm. So as you're watching standards evolve and use cases and examples, so some of these new technologies are applied in real world buildings. Well, can you tell us more about your work on that area?
Yeah, so I have the pleasure of working with Steve Halter on the Digital Twin Consortium, and we are colleagues there, co-leads. So everything that we are doing on that global organization and sharing and open, like we are taking that open innovation approach. So it's not that we have our like company logos necessarily glued to what we are doing, but it's more having a very open discussion of what might be the best industry practices to really support the industry. And that way, when we have those roundtable discussions, the outcomes are becoming more transparent, more kind of this life cycle thinking based solution. So some of our audience members might have already read the article series that I'm publishing about digital building life cycle. So taking that very much the life cycle approach to things and not the linear process, we can start seeing where the points of digital transformation start to emerge. And with that, when we are dealing with the digital twin consortium, etc., we can look at the different layers of development that are happening at the same time. Because when you're dealing with the built environment, you're dealing with net new and the legacy at the same time. So it's never a very linear process of just delivering boom, boom, boom. You actually have to be managing something that is coexisting with something that is not necessarily existing physically yet, but digitally. So overall, the Digital Twin Consortium is doing a remarkable job at looking into what do we actually have to be managing or harmonizing at the same time. So the future is going to be quite different from how it is now, because the industry is becoming more complicated and complex as we go forward. So the digital twins are actually going to be helping the end users a lot in harmonizing things, because in the future it might be that you have so many different things that you need to try to manage that it becomes practically impossible for a human being to do. But if you have a very well-defined standard layer and the technology layer and the information layer, then what you're trying to do is optimize. You optimize and harmonize, and then you start using the technology to support you as a decision maker. But yeah.
There's a good question. It's a lot for all of us to keep track of. The construction industry is booming. Real estate industry is booming. We're having a hard time just keeping up. The supply chain's constrained, skilled labor's constrained, and then we're supposed to keep up with all these evolving technologies and figure out how to build better, faster, smarter. Joseph Morris had a question in that regard. Is there a building or project that currently exists that showcases these processes or technologies?
Probably not. And the reason why not is that the project lead times for building anything practically takes a decade. When you think about when the project go into planning phase, someone has the idea that, hey, I have a pile of money that I want to invest into infrastructure or building project. The day one that need occurs is when the planning begins, and then you have the very long planning phase for the real estate or infrastructure investor, developer, owner, until they make the decision to go into the actual design phase. And then the design and engineering phase takes a couple of years, and then you go and build it. So it's overall the total lead time is so long that the things that we are doing today and developing today might be practically a decade away from now. So the showcases are coming, and there are pockets in the industry showcasing the emerging technologies and the solutions. But when looking into something that is like full-blooded, new ways of delivering something, that probably doesn't exist yet. But it doesn't mean that we can't try already.
I have more questions coming, but I don't want to interrupt you from completing your presentation. So
okay, let's see what we have here. So I want to show you this graph that everyone has probably seen already in other contexts, but I added a little bit more. So when looking at the digital transformation of the industry, because we have to really work together as an industry to change the outcomes and change what the future looks like. Why there is always that finger pointing of it's the responsibility and accountability of whoever, is that we are dealing with the spectrum of digital transformation. And what I'm suggesting is that we actually do a digital leap as an industry overall to somewhere that is the new basis, the new foundation for going forward. As long as we have this spectrum of people dealing with paper drawings and being in that very conservative, traditional way of managing projects, the built environment, and then we have those that are already using machine learning algorithms, artificial intelligence, wearable computers, etc. They are at the very opposite ends of the digital spectrum. And that's what's creating a lot of confusion in the industry, that how we're supposed to be working together when you are not necessarily even speaking the same language. And the same language is data. So if we have still data locked away in physical 2D drawings, it's very hard to deliver anything that is remotely sophisticated. But this is what I wanted to show and kind of tickle people's thinking going forward. How might we actually do the digital leap, and what does the digital leap actually look like? Where do we actually have to land altogether to start digitally transforming the industry and becoming the next technology boom? I think that there was a question about the digital building lifecycle in our Q&A. So here's an image of it. This is a kind of a like oversimplification of it all. But overall, what this is asking for is that the real estate owners or infrastructure owners, developers, investors take more responsibility and accountability for the beginning of the project. Really clearly defining that what is their investment strategy and hence the design strategy, so that the designers and engineers can use the advanced digital tools for delivering the digital artifact, the digital version of the built environment, and then whoever is going to be fabricating, manufacturing, or constructing the physical artifact, the physical assets, that's the twin, not the other way around. The digital version should be the original, and then whatever is created from that is the twin. And then using overall the multi-dimensions of BIM and the digital twins going forward, we can start analyzing more and simulating more of the project, and leaning in with the manufacturing industry, the digital supply chain, and really benefit the entire industry of what we are doing. Pardon me. And then when we arrive at the phase that we are actually handing over the building, we hand over all the documentation in a digital format. It's no longer the design intent. We actually deliver the as-designed models for the real estate owner, and also provide them the as-built models that actually reflect what was built, and give them to the real estate owner so that they are the foundation for going forward with digital twins. And they can choose whatever components they want to plug into their digital twin, from GIS data, IoT data, IOA data, reality capture, anything. There might be data sources that haven't been even discovered yet, and they can become components of the digital twin. And then when there is time for the building or the infrastructure to be improved, retrofitted, renovated, you have all the data and evidence to show you that what needs to be done, so that you don't overinvest or underdevelop something that you're dealing with. And that way, when something is improved, you start the life cycle, the technical life cycle again, but the digital building life cycle continues on, even when the building or the infrastructure has been demolished, because the data can still continue on and be used and recycled for the future projects, so that you don't end up returning to square one, but you can use the data and the evidence for improving the next time. There's more about this in my LinkedIn, on the LinkedIn articles that I published. So I recommend going and checking out what I have there.
You've done a lot of writing on this, Salla. You have great resources you've already made public. Could you just instruct the people how to find them online?
Yeah, I have everything on my LinkedIn. So if you just go to LinkedIn and search my first name, last name, my profile should pop up, and then you should be able to access the articles. They're all public there. There are probably 9 articles at the moment in regards to this framework.
Beautiful, and I'll share them and follow-up information as well after your presentation. There are a couple more. Do you have time for a couple more questions currently?
Sure.
You see the one from Mark Devereaux regarding mass timber as a carbon bank and its importance for Microsoft, as it looks at it as an asset value bank, e.g. its CapEx analysis. Mm-hmm. And then could you see the question as well? It's very conducive to disassemble reuse at the end of the building's life cycle. So tracking accounting for its asset value could be valuable.
Yeah, I think that Mark is developing a use case for a digital twin here. So if if we already know that something is built from mass timber, and we know the data about the materials, and we have the list of digital assets, we have the digital twin, and we have the building or the infrastructure running, then we have the original as engineered, as designed data to compare with when we have the IoT and IoA data from everyday life. And that way, when dealing with the question that Mark has proposed here, yeah, it's just a matter of analyzing what was it that was the intent, or how things were designed and engineered to be performing, and then how is actually performing. And if there is a gap, then off you go. You start resolving it. And so overall, when thinking about mass timber structures life cycle, yeah, you have all the data available from the design for fabrication workflow. So very good use case here.
And Greg, we're both seeing them, and I think Microsoft is supporting them well. Different ways to measure embodied carbon, more analysis of the materials and operations of the building. That's one aspect, and the others are, and even this is where I come from in the mass timber fabrication, is how does the design intent data efficiently become a building through manufacturing and digital twin applications in that area. It's a lot of moving parts.
Yes.
Do you have quite a few more slides you'd like to continue with, or you want to take more questions?
Let's see what we have on next slide. Yeah, well, this is kind of like, we can continue with the questions and answers, why not? But this is what I'm showing here now is kind of how I would start approaching the digital twin question, that when people are kind of going through the digital transformation and thinking about what is the design strategy, what is their implementation method overall, that when thinking about why to invest into digital twins and why to start adapting to digital twins in the overall framework of build environment, here are how I kind of allocated the use cases that you can use digital twins for ideating, because then you can simulate and analyze things very fast at very low cost, but you don't really get a very sophisticated outcomes, but you get kind of something to steer from. And then if you're dealing with something that is like overall already a high cost for your organization that you want to improve, and its performance is so basic that it's kind of outdated, then the digital twin can be an invention catalyst for an organization for kind of reinventing what the built environment or the portfolio is for your organization. And then if you're dealing with something that is like high performance, so you have very sophisticated built environment, but it's very high cost, there's opportunity for innovation, because with the digital twin, you have so much data made available in a kind of a single source of truth that it makes sense to kind of work things out digitally before then going and implementing them physically. And then once you are in the sweet spot of you have very high performing environment and your cost structure is very low, then use the digital twin as an intelligent tool for guiding your operations and your different teams, and really start to automate overall the operational workflows. I think that we can take more of the Q&A, because then I only have a few images left that are not necessarily as important as the questions that we have from the audience.
Right. Susan Jones has that one very interesting presentation. Salla, thank you. To add another layer of coordination, I see an exciting possibility to layer external carbon credit market analysis on top of the origin of our mass timber lumber and its forest growth. It seems like it's almost a third tier to your CapEx, OpEx tracking. Maybe environmental X, because most energy, water analysis, typical sustainable analysis goes into your OpEx, but forest carbon credits are external to the operational expenses.
Yeah, very good one from Susan. Thank you for bringing this up, because this is exactly what I'm hoping from the industry overall, that we start really critically looking into what we are dealing with right now as the legacy processes, legacy tools, legacy roles, and start kind of redefining that. What are the roles that we assign to the different stakeholders? What are the business processes that we need to be dealing with? And adding something that is like environmental expense makes total sense. I haven't thought about this before. So it's like, this is exactly the kind of innovation that I'm hoping that the digital twins can generate into our industry, and bring people into a roundtable discussion that what might be managed and optimized, harmonized under this new scope, and what kind of data can we plug into it so that it can be more automated and it actually delivers those different outcomes. And overall, what I'm seeing here is that Susan is already establishing new types of roles for digital real estate or digital infrastructure operations.
Beautiful. And Susan will be giving a presentation as well later on this month on March 18th. And
Excellent.
I ask for more audience questions as well for Salla. It's a great opportunity. Or maybe you'll continue with your presentation until we get the following questions.
Okay. Yeah, so my last slides are images that I want to show from the capabilities of digital twins, or like when we start to deal with visual data instead of only drawings and drafting tools, but really if we have visual data and structured data available, we have the IoT data available, but also the IOA data, Internet of Actions data from the end users. This is what I'm hoping for, that we will start consuming this single sets of truth together. That if dealing with like a smart grid system, pardon me for not having a mass timber image here, but this is something that if we have the business intelligent dashboards combined and federated with 3D models of the digital assets that are part of the issue or the problem that we are trying to resolve as a team, I bet that arriving at solutions and at decisions using information in this format, it's much faster and more accurate and more confident than it would be if people were flipping through stacks of old paper and then thinking that are these paper drawings, are they still valid, or are they outdated by decades? So this is what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about digital twins, that we have the data in a format that is consumable for a human being, but also readable for machines, so that we can analyze things constantly in the cloud, make it available when people need it. So if this was a site that was going to build a mass timber structure on it, You could look into the weather data. You could look into historical climate data here. You could look into the smart grid information, and overall think about the development of that region when you're planning on developing a mass timber building here, for example. So it's about improving the overall community and the society around it. So when thinking about, like, for example, sustainability, it's not only limited to the environmental sustainability, but also the social and economic sustainability. And that's what I'm hoping for, that digital twins will start to get us to understand and comprehend and talk more about when working on these complicated projects together.
Beautiful. And Salla, I can't help but ask you a question, because the Finnish knowledge and connection you have, I mean, there are many advantages the US has as such a big market. Wood is almost a default material in many use cases, and we've got a lot of investors, but innovations really happen, like in Finland, for example. I know there's Supercell's new headquarters is from mass timber. They've got a whole wood city district in Helsinki. And in some ways, there are advantages to small countries. Economies can potentially even move faster. There's maybe fewer moving parts. And then innovation is happening globally. What are you seeing, and how does it spread more quickly across borders?
I'd say that it's probably events like AEC Hackathon and the Mass Timber events as well. Because when thinking about my background coming from Finland, the Finns, we tend to be very innovative because we don't have other choice. We lack the resources that the big world has. We are a population of 5.5 million people, and yet we have fully matured manufacturing industry, construction industry, automotive industry, shipping industry, you name it, we have it. So when thinking about how much resources do we have per project to deliver something, it's usually like 2. So you have to be wearing multitudes of different hats and become this Swiss knife that knows it all. You're the director, you're the manager, you're the subject matter expert, you're the doer, you're the creditor, you're everything. So that's why Finns kind of tend to have a lot of solutions, because, well, if you do something, then you learn it. And I think that overall, with these virtual events, we can really spread the experiences much faster with others and show what we did, how we did it, because you can then easily create a video, you can show how you did things, you can share the data, you can share the information, you can have the lessons learned, teaching events, and something that is more also the roundtable theoretical events. So overall, what I'm hoping for is that the industry starts to take more of a global approach, regardless of the industry being very local, but the lessons learned, they transfer across borders, and it doesn't even require us to travel from one country to another. So what I'm hoping for is that if there are any Finns in our audience today, start publishing more content in English. I know that you're protecting your IP by publishing in Finnish, but that's really kind of limiting our own market in Finland. So pardon me for being quite critical for Finns, but if you continue publishing in Finnish, you only have your audience within your own group. So maybe 10 people reading your article, but there are millions of us out here who are interested in what you're doing. So if we start publishing more in English and publishing more like data sets that are already scrubbed and ready to be used, that's how we can start transforming the industry and creating something that is a common playground for all.
Oh, I thank you for that so much. It's one of our frustrations at AEC hackathons. We see great ideas. Too often people are reinventing the wheel, but then great solutions come up, but they don't get across the borders. And in the pandemic era, where we can share or have Zoom meetings, it just seems sense connecting more would make the industry move forward faster.
Yeah.
And another question. I mean, we're going to come up on the hour soon, but we have another one from Mark Devereux. Can we take that, or are you complete with your slides yet?
I still have slides, but the audience is more important than my slides. So let's take the next one.
Okay, Mark asks, commissioning is a process that traditionally is often painful and fraught with finger pointing. With digital twins, with mass timber or otherwise, have you noticed that the usually very manual commissioning process has been significantly shortened and made more efficient?
Very good one. Mark is making all the great questions today, and these are the things that I'm asking every day too. This is kind of something that is quite difficult because this brings us into the legislative and contractual discussion. And since I'm not a lawyer, I can only kind of ask people that we should be working together to adapt to different types of commissioning templates and let go of the old that are more serving the traditional delivery and the drawing based and national CAD standard based delivery of things. So overall, this is something that goes beyond my home organization, that how can we actually make this commissioning process easier, more simplified, more technologically supported and empowered. But this is a kind of in the legal department. So yeah, I don't have like a good answer on this, but it's definitely in my radar all the time, that how can we change the contractual templates in a way that is actually supporting the end users and the people that are creating the built environment much better than the traditional ways of doing it.
Perfect, thank you. And we've got another question, this one from Mike Eliasson, who is another one of our speakers this month. Like you, he has experience internationally, and he'll be speaking on passive house and mass timber. But his specific question is, my feeling on innovation in Bayern or Bavaria was that the government regulation and funding played a large role, e.g. EU barely zero energy buildings directive. How do you see this evolving in the US market, where innovation is more reactionary and market driven, but possibly slower to react?
Very interesting one. Yeah, some of you know that before I moved to the United States, I was leading the Finnish team on EU-funded smart city project that was aiming at improving the energy efficiency of legacy buildings by at least 50%. So this topic is very close to my heart. It's very kind of two different markets and two different kind of incentives for doing it. For EU, well, EU overall is a union for very different countries collaborating together and creating the rules and regulations and laws for a very heterogeneous region. And at the same time, there is like a huge need for retrofitting and revamping legacy neighborhoods that are now at the end of their technical life cycle, but you still have people investing in them, and there's a huge amount of investment in the built environment in Europe. And at the same time, there are incentives for being more autonomous in primary energy production, etc. So there is like, it's a multi-layered dilemma and problem in EU, then how do you actually start resolving the energy efficiency of buildings in that region? But then when looking into the United States, this is more homogeneous market, even though every state has its own rules and regulations, and it has these sub-markets here. So overall, maybe like really getting into a roundtable discussion of what are the incentives here in this market to start building more zero energy buildings, and what actually comes from that objective. Yeah, I think it's a very good question, but very complicated question as well. So it's like you with the United States, you are dealing with multiple of different climates inside the same region, and then you have very different markets overall. You have very different local construction industries in different states. So yeah, yeah, I don't have a good answer here, but overall, what I suggest as the medicine is that we start building more collaboration on the industry level here, and start sharing and using the open innovation methods for improving where we want to be with our built environment tomorrow. I think I dropped Craig. Did I lose my connection? Okay.
I just got a desperate phone call from Greg that he lost internet connection.
Oh, gotcha.
Steve, can you jump on with Salla?
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I was hoping that someone will jump in. We are almost at the top of the hour, so I can just scroll to my last images, and that's it. We arrived.
Yeah, we
Thank you so
arrived.
much.
Got some great comments. Dushant Aurora says Greg is a pretty large dude to drop. But I think he'll be okay. I'm pretty sure we'll have him back at some point here. Did we get through all the Q&A? We got one open, it looks like. Oh, okay, that was just a comment, basically. Great. Well, Salla, I was, I loved listening. You know, I mean, Salla and I meet multiple times every week. So, but every time, you know, there's so many new things that you always have, that things that you're working on that aren't necessarily in the same context I get to see you in. And this is certainly one of the ones that was different, and it was fantastic. So, and thanks for all the interaction. I know a lot of speakers struggle sometimes with the interruptions and so forth, but I think the audience really, I think, man, what some great questions. So thank you for having that adaptability.
Here we go.
Thank you. The team's back together. Thank you. Sorry, I dropped off. But
no, you just wanted to go fill up your coffee cup.
It's only my third cup. No, thank you, Salla. I know it's coming up in the hour, but thank you for making time. I know you're so extremely busy, but I hope you can engage further with us on all things mass timber and industrialized construction.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Steve. Thank you, our audience. I look forward to staying in contact through LinkedIn. And this is sausage making. So I always have an answer to any question that people have, but it's like it's a Savolainen method of responding. It's up to the listener that how do they interpret what I'm explaining. So it's but I welcome comments and open discussion within the industry, because I truly feel that built environment industry is going to be the next technology boom. So my excitement in all the emerging technology and the re-engineered processes, redefined roles, and everything that we can do tomorrow is really kind of energizing me and building up more innovation in my own brain. So thank you so much for having me here today to speak about what I'm working on and some of my thoughts.
Thank you for leading so many things. We want your leadership as we work to push things forward. Look forward to hearing further engagements. Thank you.
Thank you.